My name is Rochelle Brisson, and I'm the Engagement and Events Coordinator at SMU DataArts. I'd like to take a moment to introduce my colleague, Monica Lewis, who is our Engagement Manager, and who will be helping me answer questions throughout this presentation. Thank you again for joining us today, and a special shout out to our folks from Delaware and Oregon who have registered. Before we jump into the presentation itself, let's review some Zoom housekeeping. We're going to go ahead and keep everyone on mute during the presentation to ensure that we have the best sound quality. At this time, we ask you to take a moment to explore some helpful features within Zoom that will help you communicate with me and Monica. First, the Q&A feature it will be where you're welcome to add any questions that you have about the content of today's webinar. You can add questions at any point in time. And we'll also have a chat feature available, which you can use to reach out to Monica or myself, and we'll help troubleshoot you any technology issues you might be having. And we'll also be adding resources from the presentation in the chat feature as well. Closed captioning is available for this webinar. If you would like to activate that feature, simply click the CC icon to turn on closed captioning. You will then be prompted to view closed captions via subtitles or by a live transcript. You also will see a subtitles settings tab to make adjustments as you need to. If you need any assistance with any of the features that I just mentioned, please send us a chat. And finally, to preempt the most common question that we get, we will have a recording of this webinar and we'll send you a link to it that you will be able to review later and share with your colleagues who may have been unable to join us today. SMU DataArts is committed to providing tools and services that adhere to equity, diversity, accessibility, and inclusion principles. And to that end, we'll also be sending you an accessible PDF version of the slide deck. My colleague, Monica, will drop a link in our chat to our organization's DEIA statement. If you have any suggestions for making this presentation more accessible or feedback about the presentation in general, we'll also be providing a brief survey in our follow-up. We would greatly appreciate your feedback. So here are our goals for today's webinar. I want to start with an overview of the basics of the Cultural Data Profile, or CDP, when and how to start entering your data, and how to use it for grant reporting. We'll walk through all the sections of the CDP so you have a solid understanding of what data you'll enter. We'll also walk you through running a funder report for your grant maker, which will be the document that you'll send in with your grant application. And finally, before we break, we'll make sure to talk through additional resources available to you from SMU DataArts. At the end of this hour, I hope you'll come away with the information you need to participate in the CDP and a good understanding of why we collect this data and how you can use it after it has been entered into our system. As we begin, I want to take a moment to share a brief overview of our organization. For more than a decade, we've provided data-informed insights and resources to the arts and cultural sector. DataArts began in Pennsylvania as the Cultural Data Project in 2004, a collaborative venture of visionary funders and arts advocates with the goal to address the long-standing need for detailed, reliable information on nonprofit arts, culture, and humanities organizations that would strengthen management, philanthropy, research, and public policy. In 2018, DataArts merged with the Southern Methodist University's National Center for Arts Research, a nationally recognized research center, developing reports based on a uniquely comprehensive set of data that models the arts and cultural ecosystem. As a combined entity, SMU DataArts employs cutting-edge research techniques and high-powered computing to test hypotheses, build theory, and increase understanding of the arts and cultural sector. Our research efforts range from academic papers published in leading journals, applied research undertaken with community partners, and actionable insights shared directly with arts practitioners. Our mission is to provide and engage organizations and individuals with the evidence-based insights needed to collectively build strong, vibrant, and equitable arts communities. So here you can see a little bit more about what we specifically do. We develop data collection and research methods to respond to evolving sector needs. We collect high-quality longitudinal data on the arts and cultural sector. We focus our research on the health and vitality of the sector, and we engage the field with insights from the data that people can use. Our focus for today's presentation will be on one of our largest data collection tools, the Cultural Data Profile. The Cultural Data Profile, or the CDP, is a free and secure online survey that collects financial and programmatic data from nonprofit arts, cultural, and humanities organizations so they can apply for grants, gather insights, use data to strengthen a case for support, and contribute to nationwide research. As of 2021, over 19,000 organizations have contributed data through the CDP. SMU DataArts uses the CDP to collect and organize data from across the arts and cultural sector, and each CDP contains financial and programmatic data for a single fiscal year at an organization. The data collected by the CDP is utilized by many stakeholders in the arts and cultural sector. Arts and cultural organizations primarily use the CDP to streamline their grant application process. As I mentioned, once your data is entered, you can use it to apply for grants, gather insights from your own data, and share your data to strengthen the case for arts and cultural support. Grantmakers use the CDP to access data and reports that lead to higher impact philanthropy. Grantmakers also benefit from the standardized data that streamlines your grant application process. Research and advocates use the CDP to explore aggregated data sets, answer questions, and communicate about the sector's assets and challenges. Research using CDP dataset often creates reports that provide evidence-based support to advocate for policy and funding. So to make the most of your CDP, we recommend completing it as a part of your year-end budgeting process. By aligning the completion of your profile with your fiscal year end, you can ensure that your financial data is up to date and ready for when grant opportunities arise. Here's an example of what that annual workflow might look like. So your fiscal year ends, and you subsequently wrap up your year-end financial reporting. You close your books in your accounting software and prepare your year-end statements for your board. For many of you, you may get ready to have an audit done and file your 990 with the IRS. So that's the moment when you can enter in your data into the CDP, after your books are closed and once you have your year-end statements. Once your data is entered, it will be ready for you when you have a grant line come up with a participating funder. At that point, you'll run a report from the SMU DataArts platform as a part of that application, which we call a funder report. Then, if you have additional funders who use DataArts, as those deadlines come up throughout the year, you can easily run reports based on your same data. That's how you'll use DataArts as a part of your grant reporting. But we know that there are a lot of other moments where you might need to turn to data to support your work. So for example, you might have to present data to your board so you can have an informed conversation about strategic decisions at a board meeting. You might be in a strategic planning process and trying to envision the future of your organization, and you may find that data on your past performance can help in those conversations. And towards the end of each year, your organization probably goes through a budgeting process where you use your data from this year to start to think about what your revenue and expenses will look like next year. We have tools and resources in our system that can help in all of these moments, but the focus of today's session will be on the beginning of this process, entering your data and running a report for your grant makers. So to complete the cultural data profile, you're going to need both financial and non-financial information for your organization. On the financial side, this will be an audit or review if you have one. Otherwise, you'll use your year-end profit and loss statements and the balance sheet generated from your accounting software or from your 990. Smaller organizations may rely on spreadsheets and other tools used to track financials throughout the year. On the non-financial side, you'll need information about your programs and attendance data from either your ticketing software, attendance records, or any other place you may track that data. You'll also need information about your staff, donors, and contributors. If you would like to access the full survey before starting your CDP, a copy is available for download on our website, so you can be sure to have all the information needed and prioritize efficiency when requesting documents from colleagues. Monica will go ahead and drop a link to that page in the chat, and we'll be sure to also include it in our follow-up. If you have not already created an account on the platform, this will be your next step. Multiple colleagues from the same organization may create an individual account. Within your individual account, you may connect to all the organizations you are personally affiliated with. So for example, if you work at one organization and are a board member or administrative volunteer on another, you'll be able to connect your account to both organizations and have access to both organizations' data. Only individuals with your login credentials will be able to access your personal account and the connected organizations. To create an account for the first time, click the Create an Account link option and follow the instructions. To connect your individual account to an organization, select the Join or Set Up button near the top of your screen and follow the steps outlined below. You'll search for the organization you want to connect your account with in our database. If the organization already exists, request to connect your account with the existing profile. Request will be sent to the organization's administrator. And if the administrator account has been lost or changed, we'll ask you to please contact our support center to help you troubleshoot. If the organization does not exist in our database, then you'll follow the steps to set up a new organization profile. Once you have attached your individual account to an organization, your dashboard will look like this. To start your first cultural data profile, you'll click the Start a Survey button. As you start a new survey, you will be prompted with a short set of questions that will help the platform determine which type of survey is most relevant for your organization. The CDP survey is tailored based on an organization size and type to help ensure that the questions are relevant to your organization. As you select the Start a Survey button, respond to the financial and programmatic questions as best as possible. This setup process takes about 5 minutes to complete, and these settings can be modified in future years as your organization grows and changes. Let's take a look at a few of these questions. So the first question you will be asked is which year you would like to create a survey for. Select the year you want to work on from the drop-down menu and confirm that the full fiscal year end date is correct. I'd like to take a moment to highlight a tool that is found throughout the CDP and can be very helpful if you have questions about what is being asked of you. If you hover over this help icon, you'll see some additional guidance and sometimes an example of what the question is looking for. These icons appear on every question of the survey, so feel free to use them if you need further clarification of an individual question. The next question you will get in the survey setup will ask you to select your organization type from the drop-down menu. Most organizations that complete the CDP are 501(c)(3)s, but there are a few other options we want to take a moment to highlight. Fiscally sponsored organizations are new or existing organizations that have not yet acquired a 501(c)(3) nonprofit status and rely on a nonprofit sponsor to apply for and receive grant funding. We also have an option for programs or departments within a larger organization, which we refer to as an entity under a parent organization. These projects, programs, or departments have an arts and cultural focus and are part of a larger organization that does not have a main focus of arts and culture. The larger organization is called a parent organization and holds oversight on management, operations, and finances. An example of a entity under a parent would be a history museum run by a university or an arts therapy program run by a hospital. The next questions that you'll be asked concern classifying the type of organization you are representing. You'll be asked what type of arts or cultural discipline your organization participates in, and if your organization's total expenses for the year were less than $50,000. Let's focus on the expenses question for just a moment. Answering yes to this question will categorize your organization as small, and your survey will be shorter and more streamlined to reflect the less detailed data you may have available. If you want to complete a full survey, you can always come back and change this option. So the next question will ask about your organization's finances in more detail, including whether the organization was reviewed or audited by an independent accounting firm. It will also ask if the organization has restricted revenue, non-operating revenue, and/or non-operating expenses. Once you have completed the survey settings questions, you'll be ready to start your survey. The CDP was built to capture the financial and programmatic data of organizations of all disciplines and sizes, but our platform is designed with you in mind. Before we jump into the CDP itself, let's take a moment to walk through a few navigation tools and tips for your data entry. So on the left-hand side of the screen, as you enter your data profile, is the internal navigation that will help you quickly move around from section to section. To modify the survey customization questions we just discussed, you can select the survey settings button and edit any of the responses. Near the top of your screen, you'll see a general announcement box. If there is any important news or announcements regarding the CDP platform, such as platform maintenance, that information will be posted here. And near the top of each subsection is a link for more help on this section that will redirect you to our knowledge base containing helpful articles about the most frequently asked questions for each section. As I mentioned before, the cultural data profile was built to capture the data from all sorts of organizations, from art museums to performing arts ensembles. As you go through the line items in the CDP, keep in mind that if your organization does not have or do the type of activity listed, you can skip that line item. You do not need to fill in zeros. For example, these line items are looking for information about your membership revenue. If your organization does not have a membership program, feel free to skip these lines. In the main navigation bar at the top of your screen is another help icon. This remains active and visible within all the sections of the platform and will bring up a search field for our online knowledge base, as well as the contact information for our support center. Before we jump into the different sections of the survey itself, here are a few final data entry tips to keep in mind. When you are comparing your financials to the lines in the CDP, the audit or review you may be using might be less detailed than the CDP. For example, an audit may have a line for earned revenue and have no further details. But since the CDP asks for more line items under earned revenue, you may need to look at your internal financial statements to find the information needed. Alternatively, you may find that your financial statements might be more detailed than the CDP asks for. QuickBooks commonly provides more details than is asked for in your survey. And in these cases, what you'll want to do is simply add up the line items from the financial statements and input them as one number in the CDP. And finally, keep in mind the CDP might use different terminology than some other records. To help guide you through some of the more common terminology difference, the CDP contains definitions and instructions for line items where possible. And of course, if you run into any issues or need additional guidance in answering any of the questions in our survey, our support center is available from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday. Our support center can assist with anything from technical difficulties to matching your audit to the CDP. They can be reached by phone at 877-707-3282 or by email at help@culturaldata.org. We also offer on-demand interpretation in many languages, so if needed, please ask the specialist for that when you are connected. So let's jump right into the survey itself. Once the survey settings are complete, you are now at the heaviest lift of the data entry process, the financial sections. You may save your progress at any point, but please expect to spend the majority of your time on this portion of the survey. So the first section of the survey is revenue, with 6 subsections that go into specific details. Only organizations that selected audit or review in the survey settings portions will see this first subsection for audit totals. In this section, you will enter key revenue totals from your audit, which will be used as a check against other sections to help ensure correct financial data is entered throughout the survey. Audited or reviewed organizations will also see an audit total subsection in the expenses and the balance sheet section as well. The second subsection of the revenue section is earned revenue. Earned operating revenue is any income the organization earned by providing goods or services. In this subsection, we ask you to break out your earned operating revenue into more specific line items, such as ticket sales, rental revenue, and membership fees. The next section focuses on investment revenue. Investment revenue includes interest and any other earnings on any investment, such as bank accounts, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, or any other investments. Non-operating investment revenue will only appear if you state that you have non-operating revenue when customizing the survey. You also may see a subsection for any other non-operating revenue. Non-operating revenue, again, will only appear if you state that you had non-operating revenue when customizing the survey. And this can include any unusual or one-time income that falls outside of your core business and programs, like contributions to a capital campaign or if your organization received a large bequest. The next subsection you'll see is the contributed revenue section. All organizations will be asked to submit information regarding contributed revenue and the number of contributors. If you indicated that the organization has restricted contributions during the setup, you'll see a column for both unrestricted and restricted contributed revenue. You'll also see a column to add the number of contributors from each category. Next, you'll find the expenses section. The expenses section is divided into personnel and non-personnel expenses. You may also see the expenses categorized by functional columns: program, management in general, and fundraising. This further detail helps researchers understand which activities your expenses are going towards. If your organization has an annual budget under $50,000, you'll only have one column in the expenses section, and you won't see these functional expenses broken out. I'd like to take a moment to highlight a special kind of question that you'll find in this section and some of the others. It's called a breakout question. The breakout questions are where we ask you to break out a portion of the total reported above. Throughout the survey, breakout questions will be identified with a gray background. In the expenses section in particular, you'll see an additional breakout question that asks for the amount paid to visual and performing artists from the total personnel expenses reported above. You'll also see a breakout question that asks organizations to report the portion of its expenses associated with marketing. This data allows us to provide insights into marketing activities across the sector. Finally, we have also added a question that about digital program expenses. This data will help us understand the costs associated with the shift to digital programming that many organizations experienced in 2020 and may have continued since. This final question is optional. The next section that you'll see in this financial portion is the balance sheet. Depending on the type of organization you identified yourself as in the survey settings, will affect the type of balance sheet format you might see, or if you see a balance sheet section at all. Audited organizations will see and complete the balance sheet with unrestricted and restricted columns. Unaudited organizations will complete a single column balance sheet. Fiscally sponsored organizations will see the balance sheet section, but it will be optional to complete. And for small organizations, which again we defined as organizations under $50,000 in annual expenses, they will not see a balance sheet section at all. So that concludes the walkthrough of the financial sections of the cultural data profile. The next section will switch up focus to your organization's workforce and workspace. This section focuses on your workforce, leadership structure, and location of where your organization does its programmatic and administrative work. This section has several subsections for you to fill out, including workforce for information about the number of full-time and part-time staff, independent contractors, and volunteers who work at the organization. We also have a turnover column to report the number of individuals who left their position within each fiscal year. Let's take a closer look at this column. For the CDP, turnover is defined as the number of permanent employees who resigned, retired, or were terminated. These should include employment terminations and employment layoffs. You should not include positions that have a defined term limit that has ended, such as internships, fellowships, and temporary positions. Next, you will see a section about COVID-19 impact. These questions ask you to quantify the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on your workforce. This section is optional, and answers collected from fiscal years outside of the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic will not be used for research or reporting purposes. The next subsection we ask about is your organization's leadership. Here we are asking for information on whoever has the highest decision-making authority at your organization. We ask for some basic information about your leader, as well as the year that they started. And if you have a shared leadership structure where two people share equal decision-making authority, you can enter in two co-leaders. And finally, we get to the workspaces subsection. Here you can enter up to 5 workspaces, and you should include both administrative and programmatic workspaces. If you do not have a physical workspace, you can indicate that in this checkbox here and skip this section. The final section you'll encounter in the CDP is the program activity and audience section. In this section, you'll share the number of programs and types of programs your organization held during the fiscal year. You'll also see questions about attendance, ticketing programs, and audience. The first subsection you come to is tickets, admissions, and package pricing subsection. Here you will enter the lowest and highest prices offered for each line item. For our purposes, free is not considered a price point, so $0 should not be entered in as a low price. You will be able to account for free programming in the attendance section. Next is the memberships and subscribers section. This section includes the total count of members and subscribers during the year, as well as the percentage of renewals from last year. We also ask for your renewal rates for each category, but this question is optional. We then come to the program section, and this is a very extensive section that covers programming for all types of arts and cultural organizations. For each line that is applicable to your organization, you'll enter the number of programs held for each type. Any line items that are not applicable to your organization can be left blank. For performing arts or event-based programming, we have divided that part into categories in-person programs and digital programs. These categories are subdivided also into distinct programs offerings and the number of times offered. Enter both the number of distinct programs and the number of times each program was offered into those columns. So, for example, if an organization had 2 shows, we'll call them Play A and Play B, and offered them both at 3 different times, they would report 2 distinct programs, Play A and Play B, and 6 times offered. For digital programs, we have a similar subdivision of distinct live stream programs and the number of times live streamed. But we also have a distinction between live streamed events and on-demand programs. Live streamed refers to programs with a live or real-time performance aspect. For example, attending a webinar live or a live broadcast of an event. And on-demand programs are pre-recorded and can be watched at any time. So for example, tutorials or behind-the-scenes videos. Let's take our previous example organization to break down an example of how you would fill out the digital column. So as we said, our example organization had 2 shows during the year, Play A and Play B. Our example organization decided to have a live broadcast of only Play B every night of the show's run. So in the CDP, we would enter 1 distinct live streamed performance and 3 for the number of times live streamed. Example organization also decided to put recordings of both shows on their YouTube page. So they would enter a 2 on their on-demand offerings box, since their audience can watch these recordings at any time. The next subsection, the attendance and participation subsection, you'll be asked to parse attendance numbers by in-person and digital attendance, as well as by paid and free attendance. You will also be asked to break out the number of attendees to your programs that are under 18 years old to count for the number of children attending your programs. The next few subsections focus on your organization's overall identity and audience served. In the organization mission subsection, you will specify whether your organization's mission is rooted in a specific ethnic, cultural, or demographic voice. Examples of organizations that would answer yes to this question are an African American art museum or a gay men's chorus. We then next come to the organization audience subsection, where we'll ask you to only select yes if serving a specific audience is the primary mission, or if over 25% of the total participants are from a particular group. So for example, a children's theater company would answer yes, we serve a particular audience, and select children under 18 as its primary audience. And finally, we have another COVID-19 subsection. In this subsection, you'll be providing more details about the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on your organization that will provide more comprehensive insights for the organization, for grant makers, and for the sector as a whole. Again, this data will only be collected for the fiscal years during the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, we've covered a ton of ground. And so before we jump into the final parts of completing your survey and running a fund report, I wanted to check in with Monica to see if we had any questions in the chat or the Q&A.
Yes, we did have one question just to confirm what is an independent contractor, if that is anyone with a 1099. And I confirmed with that guest that yes, for the CDP, that person would be categorized as an independent contractor. As you have more questions during our time together, feel free to drop them in the Q&A or chat. But I highly encouraged jotting down this contact information of our amazing supportive support center. As you're entering data into the cultural data profile, if you find yourself stuck or need further clarification, or really just would like someone to help you as you're entering your data, this will be a really great resource for you. Our amazing support center will be happy to assist you. Their number is on our screen, 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. You can contact them via phone or email, and they'd be happy to assist you. That's all I got, Rochelle.
Great. Thank you so much, Monica. Moving on to completing your survey and running your funder report. So once you have completed your data entry, you'll click on the Check and Complete button. The system will run an error check, which will review for possible errors and discrepancies in your data entry. Once the error check is complete, you'll see a complete list of all potential issues with links that will take you directly to each question. The error check will identify two types of issues: errors and warnings. An error indicates an issue that needs to be resolved before completing your survey. In this example, the organization is getting an error from entering in a number in the survey for independent contractor expenses, but not the number of independent contractors employed. A warning indicates a potential data entry issue, but warnings are not required to be resolved before you complete your CDP. So in this example, warning is triggered by a missing description for the line item, non-personnel expenses not included above. Maybe an issue you want to resolve, but you don't need to resolve it in order to complete your CDP. We do recommend that you check all warnings before finishing your CDP, though, so you can avoid mistakes like this. Once all the errors have been resolved, you'll submit and complete your survey. A confirmation of your completed survey will appear, and you'll see on the dashboard a check mark and your survey listed as completed. Your completed survey can be viewed at any time by clicking the Action drop-down button. And you can also use this action drop-down button to reopen your survey if you have any edits that you need to make or to print out your survey. So completing the cultural data profile survey is typically part of a grant application process through one of our partnering grant makers. If this applies to you, the next step is to run a funder report through our platform. A funder report takes the data from one or more completed surveys and neatly creates a standardized report for you and the funder. So from the dashboard, you'll run a funder report by going to that funder report tab or by searching for the name of the grant maker you will be applying to in the funder reports and grants search field. So our example, we are looking up Example Corporate, and they are accepting applications for 2 different grant programs. You'll want to click the select the view next to the one grant program that you're applying to for more information. And then expanded details will appear that will provide key requirements and the deadline if this information has been made available to us. To generate a funder report, we recommend that you first run a draft report to review your data before you share it with your grant maker. Once reviewed, select the Generate Report to download a copy of the final report. Here are a few pro tips when looking at your report. You'll want to consult your grant maker's guidelines for how they want your funder report submitted, as well as how they want any other items for your application submitted. For example, you want to be sure that you know if your application needs to be submitted via email, through a grants management system, or physical hard copy. Before generating a funder report, consider running a draft version to check for accuracy. And finally, always be ready to talk about your data with your grant maker. Before sharing the funder report with grant makers, take a moment to review the report and get an understanding of the data and the story that it tells. While you analyze the data in the funder report, be sure to look at the trends and percent change columns. If you notice a substantial percent change in dollar amount on any line item, make sure you know why that change happened. Looking at the trends and percent changes can also help ensure that you use consistent lines when recording your data from year to year. We do have tools for when you are working on your data entry that will help you check consistency from year to year. On the right side of every line in the financial sections of the data profile, you'll see a prior year total column, and you'll also see a percent change column. These columns are pre-populated and will remind you of which lines you used in the previous year and show you the percent change from last entry to this entry. You can see any substantial percentage changes as you are entering your data and determine if they reflect accurate changes in your operations or a result of a different categorization in data entry. You can also leave notes for future you and your colleagues by clicking on the notes icon located to the right of each line. In the text box, you can add meaningful notes to reference in the future. And these notes are only visible to your organization. They will not appear on your funder report. However, if you do have a large change that you would like to explain to your funder or anything else in your data that could use additional context, there is a way to provide annotations by using the optional narrative sections for your funder report. These are brief narrative fields that appear at the end of key sections of the data profile, specifically in the revenue, expenses, balance sheet, and program activity sections. The narrative fields are intended as annotations and explanations of the data in your report. Here's an example of adding context to data for the funder through the funder report narrative text box. In this example, an organization is explaining that a capital campaign led to a large increase in unrestricted net assets on their balance sheet. So that concludes our walkthrough of the cultural data profile and running a funder report. Before we jump to final questions, I want to quickly go over some resources available to you to make the most of your data. SMU DataArts has free tools, resources, and national research to help you understand the context in which your organization does business and plan for the future. We have two free and helpful resources that utilize your CDP data, the KIPI dashboard and our suite of analytic reports. The KIPI dashboard, or Key Intangible Performance Indicator dashboard, provides your organization's financial and operating performance results relative to organizations like yours nationally, so you can assess health and sustainability and hone strategic decisions. Our easy-to-read analytics reports cover a range of topics such as program activity and fundraising to paint a clear picture of both your organization and the sector so you can identify ways to improve your results. We do have an upcoming webinar in February that walks through how to access both of these tools from the SMU DataArts platform and the various reports you can run. Monica's going to go ahead and drop a link to the event to register for that webinar in the chat. And we'll be sure to also include that in our follow-up email. If you want to learn more about using data in general, we've developed a series of free online courses about data literacy. These courses you can take at any point in time, and they're meant to help you learn to use data more effectively, and they feature all kinds of data. There are 4 courses currently available, and they cover specifics of how data can be useful in different areas of your work. The courses cover using data for decision making, financial data essentials, using data to build relationships with your audience and donors, and using data in advocacy work. SMU DataArts also conducts national research that provides in-depth insights into the financial and operating health of arts and cultural organizations. Our work highlights both successes and challenges within the sector, emphasizing issues like equity, funding distribution, and community impact. Through data-driven analysis that informs strategies for sustaining arts organizations and enhancing arts vibrancy across communities, our research serves as a guide for cultural organizations, policymakers, and funders nationwide. For example, we have the SMU DataArts AVI report. SMU DataArts Arts Vibrancy Index, or AVI report, is an annual analysis and ranking of the nation's most arts vibrant communities based on 3 key categories: arts providers, arts dollars, and government support. This report is accompanied by an interactive map that provides scores for every county nationwide. We recently published our 2024 AVI report in mid-December. Monica is going to drop a link to that report where you can see who made the top 40 list of the most arts vibrant, large, mid-sized, and small communities, as well as allow you to explore the interactive map to see where your community landed last year. All right, and that concludes the meat and potatoes of our presentation. Before we wrap up and close our space, I want to check in with Monica to see if we have any questions in the Q&A or chat. Feel free to continue to add questions. Monica, do we have anything that
No, there are
we can
no
address?
questions at this time. Just wanted to share a reminder that we will provide a recording of today's presentation along with all of those helpful links that you see in that chat feature. But no questions at this time. I think we've had a really great audience taking really good notes. Back to you, Michelle.
Great. Thank you so much, Monica. As there are no more questions, I want to, again, one last time, remind you of the support center's information. Again, operating hours are 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday, and you can reach them by email or phone. If any questions come up as you are working on your CDP or as you navigate the platform, please feel free to reach out to them for support and guidance. Well, that will conclude our time together. So if you would like to learn more about our research or stay keyed into other events, please feel free to connect with us on social media. We are at SMU DataArts on Facebook, Instagram, X, and LinkedIn. And as one final reminder, we will send out a video of this webinar and a link to the survey, to a survey about this presentation. We would love to have your feedback. Monica and I think, are going to stay on silently for a minute more, but if you have just to make sure we get all questions that may have been asked. But if you have no further questions, thank you for joining us today and have a great rest of your day.